to fucking rage it is. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's raging. Adam probably won't be raging because, you know, he's very happy about this, obviously. Because today we're going to talk about Adam getting the experience of a lifetime and going to game one of the fucking World Series at Dodger Stadium. I mean, that's... Going to a World Series in general is not something that a lot of people can fucking say, I think.
Yeah, I think... I've been to a World Series before in 2017. I can't remember which game it was that I went to, but that kind of ruined the experience for me, especially because they fucking lost. But I thought I'll give it another shot. I'll fucking buy a ticket and just I might as well enjoy this regardless if they win or lose.
Yeah.
And I have to say, man, I had a bit of buyer's remorse.
Well, at the beginning,
yes, I had a bit of.
But not at the end, right?
No.
Okay.
All
right. Well, before we get into it fully,
yeah.
If you want to check out our other shit, subscribe, comment, like Game Rage Magazine on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Game Rage Magazine, Twitter/X Game Rage Mag. You can follow us on Twitter/X. Oh yeah, I said Game Rage Mag. You can follow Adam at All Gas No Trash Official and check out the All Gas No Trash podcast. Also, you can go check out Frank at Anime_Syndicate_podcast, and you can check out the Anime Syndicate podcast if you like anime. All right. Let's go back to it. So you had buyer's remorse a little bit once you did it. Now, I will say this to provide context. You were debating. You were debating buying a $60 fucking sweater.
Yes, a Dodgers
sweatshirt. Okay, you were like, I don't know if I want to spend the money.
Yeah.
And you literally dropped how much on a ticket to go to Game 1 of World Series?
All right, so this might have to be a business expense.
Oh, it is. This is by far the most expensive episode of a podcast we've ever done.
Yeah. The ticket, I bought it, I think, the day before the game itself. So
and you got it from a reseller, right? It wasn't direct.
I got it from Game Time, and I bought it for $961. And of course,
that was out the door, right? Out the door, $961.
$961, yeah.
Okay. And
so
then
it was probably closer to face value, and I paid probably like $16 extra or roughly thereabouts.
Okay.
And I could have gotten it cheaper like the day of, but
did the prices go down?
They did. They went
because people weren't buying them, or they weren't buying the resale tickets?
I don't know if it was because people weren't buying them, but there were a slew of tickets available, and they ended up being like $200, $300 cheaper than what I bought it for. So I didn't even bother looking at that because I was also thinking, because if you buy it the day of, it's not said. I can't remember where I bought a ticket, but I did buy it on Gate Time, but they tell you like it may take up to 3 hours for it to process and the ticket to be transferred over to you in the MLB Ballpark app.
Okay.
So if like you buy a ticket the day of, and let's say I got it for $600, right?
Okay.
If I bought it at 12 o'clock, getting a great fucking deal, and I showed up at the stadium at like 2 or 3, and I'm in gridlock, and I don't actually get to the stadium until, the first inning of the fucking game, I'd be fucking pissed. So that's why I bought it on Thursday.
Yeah.
As an insurance policy to make sure that I got there on time. And,
right.
With the ticket in hand. But yeah, as you were saying, I mean, dude, I was debating over buying a goddamn sweater for a goddamn week, or a hoodie rather, and then World Series happens. Dodgers beat the Mets in what was a 4-2 series win for them. So I was like, man, I don't know when the next time I'm going to be able to go to a World Series, and let alone a Dodgers versus Yankees World Series, which is like, it's peak baseball basically. And I will say I had a bit of buyer's remorse because it's not really about the cost. It's just the amount of fucking pain being a Dodgers fan is, dude. Like, I've seen so much shit from like me being a kid, going through all the shitty 90s years and the 2000s, like when Frank McCourt was the owner, and I think Fox was the owner before that, like Bernie Madoff. I don't know if it was. Yeah,
there was some sort of like that Bernie Madoff like deal fucked the Dodgers because they were heavily invested in that or whatever.
So there was that. The team was fucking cheap. they were dog shit for a while, and it wasn't
Yeah.
until Guggenheim Baseball ended up taking it over and then installing Farhan Zaidi and Andrew Friedman as the front office of the Dodgers, and what is now becoming, they're not exactly a baseball dynasty, but they're becoming one of the better teams for like a decade. 2011, I mean, dude, that shit was great. It was like Clayton Kershaw at his best. They brought in Zach Greinke, who had a Cy Young caliber year, and he won the Cy Young. But it wasn't there. Like there was, the pitching was excellent, but the hitting was lacking, and the bullpen sucked. They make the playoffs, get bounced, make the playoffs, play the St. Louis Cardinals like 3 or 4 times, get their ass kicked, and then they played in the NLCS, like I think in 2015 or 2016, against the New York Mets. And then that Chase Utley slide happened where he slid in, and the dude ended up breaking his arm because he really went into him. So then, shitty year for that, and then like the year that the Cubs won in 2016 or whatever.
Yeah.
So that the Mets one must have been 2015. Dodgers play the fucking Cubs, lose, and then the Cubs go on to win their first championship, and I forgot, like it's 1908, so 108 years or some shit.
Yeah, and something like that. And I'll say this too, like what's crazy, like it's as much as I hate the Dodgers, right? Because I'm an asshole, okay? It does, because I was a Dodgers guy from like the early 90s all the way up until maybe like the early 2000s, like right pre 9/11 maybe. Maybe even like 99. I don't know what the year exactly was that this fucking thing happened that turned me against the Dodgers forever. And yes, it's fucking stupid, okay? But again, I was a kid, and that sucks. And I wore Dodger blue all the time, man. I was a Dodger guy. Like I loved the Dodgers. And that event happened, and I fucking needed to turn the next closest team was the Angels, right? And I got lucky in turning into them from 99 or 2000. And then we won a World Series literally 2 years later, 2 or 3 years later.
With Mike Scioscia.
That was lucky. Yeah, that was luck, all right? That was, the Angels probably by all rights should not have, they were the wild card team that season. So they probably by all rights should not have fucking won the actual fucking World Series that year. And again, haven't won a World Series since, and if the current ownership doesn't change or change their philosophy, they probably will never win another one again.
Yeah.
But it's crazy because, like, again, I remember watching, dude, fucking
Mike Piazza,
Eric Karros, fucking
Raul
Mondesi, dude, the cocaine addict himself, man. Raul Mondesi, like, loved blowing hookers, man. Like, what a great time that was for the Dodgers. But they sucked. They weren't good. Like, they didn't win. They didn't go to the playoffs many years. They didn't go to the World Series really ever during those periods of time. And I remember sitting there listening to Vin Scully. Like, that's the voice of a generation, right? I mean, Vin Scully is
baseball.
It's time for, we have the fucking clip as a goddamn thing that we use as a soundbite on this show, because Vin Scully to me just doesn't represent that's baseball, right?
Baseball,
that's Southern California baseball. I don't give a fuck if you're an Angels or a fucking Padres fan. You got nothing that compares to Vin fucking Scully, all right?
Yeah.
Tommy Lasorda fucking being like, nobody's got, maybe Mike Scioscia kind of got there, but like he wasn't a gangster like Tommy Lasorda fucking was.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, just to be clear, I hate the fucking Dodgers, okay? Even though I'm talking very nicely about them right now. I will say that this series thus far, I mean, you went to game 1.
Yeah.
Game 2. So far, these 2 series, the Dodgers are up 2-0, okay? These have been 2 great games. I mean, regardless. Game 1, what was your experience like at the stadium?
Oh, fuck, I was working to that.
Okay, all right.
Because I still have shit to say about even just like working myself through the fucking decades. Like, man,
go ahead.
Manny Ramirez, 2008, when he fucking arrived from Boston Red Sox because he was being a dickhead on them. I mean, it was the greatest shit ever. Like that year, Manny Mania was fucking, or Mannywood was made. Dude, he hit like, I don't know how many bombs he fucking hit. He was batting like 322 from the second half of the season on, and then obviously he re-signs with the Dodgers, but they never really had the team to get to the World Series, and it was always that. Like it was one thing or the other. If it was the hitting that was on point, the fucking pitching sucked dick. Yeah, I mean, I've been a Dodgers fan for as long as I can remember. I remember being in the fucking bleachers and seeing fucking Hideo Nomo pitch. Like, I remember fucking going to the 76 gas station that's in the ballpark itself, and Hideo Nomo was there with his fucking wife. I didn't ask him for an autograph, but I would distinctly remember that in my head. So I always remember Japanese players on the fucking Dodgers, and Chanho Park. I mean, South Korean, but Asians. Like, I remember Asian players on the Dodgers and shit. Never got to experience Fernando Mania because that was like 2 years after I was born, or rather, his career started like way before that. But the '88 World Series, like that was 2 years after I was born. Didn't get to experience that shit. And then we get towards like the 2020s with like the 2020 World Series, and then 2017 where they lost against the Astros or where they cheated. So I don't know, like that's kind of everything leading up to this point. So as I said before, buyer's remorse a little bit because I've been burned so many times watching the Dodgers in the playoffs that they lose so goddamn much. But I don't know, man, this year seemed different. And I think I told you I think I was telling you as the Dodgers were working through the playoffs that this thing felt like a fucking simulation or a script.
Yeah.
Because I told you, man, like from the second half onwards, the bullpen for the Dodgers had been so on point out of necessity because the starting pitchers had fallen off the map because they were getting injured or some other bullshit. And then, so to me, essentially, the bullpen had been doing dress rehearsals for the postseason.
Yeah.
And the hitting was there. Like, the hitting was there with Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Teoscar Hernandez, and like the rest of the lineup. The hitting was there. It was whether like the starting pitching was going to show up, and Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who has been in addition to the fucking team, not knowing how he was going to pitch because he was coming off of his shoulder injury that took him out for like 3 months from his start against the Yankees in June to September. He only had 2 starts to like get ramped up again. And I think he gets fucked, if I remember correctly, he gets his shit rocked for one of the games in San Diego, or rather, I think it was in the regular season, but he flips the script and pitches well against the NLDS series against the Padres. And so, I don't know, man, I just felt like there was this weird fucking aura about this team. And then watching the NLCS, like there's this interview with one of the relief pitchers, Brent Honeywell, and fucking the third baseman, Max Muncy, and they're talking about how like all they did for 8 hours for their break for the wild card series of like that period of time is like all they did was hang out for 8 hours and talk baseball and like what they were going to do to the Padres and what they were going to do to the Mets. And like they just kind of built like their team chemistry even further. And I don't know, man, like just listening to that interview, I already had it in my mind that the fucking Dodgers were going to take this series against, well, it's still being played out, but Dodgers are essentially up 2-0 on against the Yankees. But now we get to the fucking game. So I wake up, I drive to fucking Dodger Stadium I think I arrive probably around 10 o'clock. So the game's at 5 o'clock and I'm already there, 7 hours in advance.
Yeah.
So before I even go to the stadium, I go to Philippe's, the sandwich place, and funny enough, like 30 minutes after the fact, after I leave, Oral Hershiser was at Philippe's, so I probably could have fucking seen him if I stuck around long enough, but whatever. And ironically, for it being the World Series, the line, so we did an episode on Shohei Ohtani bobblehead night, right?
Yeah.
The line went from the fucking gate, Vince Scully Way or whatever. It went from that gate all the way down to the police academy. And the World Series, there was only like 100 people waiting outside the gate. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah, so then they opened the gate at like 2 o'clock, so I was just kind of like lingering around.
You know, not to interrupt you, but I think that kind of goes with the theme that we've been talking about with like World Series, Super Bowl, WrestleMania. The tickets are so expensive, the diehards aren't able to afford it for the most part.
Maybe.
It's rich people that are just going, because like, again, the diehards went to go get the Shohei Ohtani, right? Like bobbleheads. So they're fucking there hella early. This is the World Series. Let's be real. No offense to, fuck Shohei Ohtani, but no offense to him in general. The World Series is bigger than Shohei Ohtani bobblehead night. People should be lined up at 9 a.m., 8 a.m. They should be lined up to fucking get into the building, right? So, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, so it paled in comparison to what Shohei Ohtani did on his own fucking bobblehead night. I really don't understand why that's the case. Like, I mean, we could speculate about it.
Sure, yeah.
But I was standing in line and I was talking to this dude because we were looking at, like, they have this vigil for Fernando who had recently passed away this past week. Also weird timing that he fucking died like the same week the Dodgers start the World Series.
Yeah.
Already bad juju for the fucking Yankees.
Yep, they're fucked.
Because I told you, dude, it's the tragedy complex. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's playing out, especially with the way this game ended.
Yeah.
I mean, Freddie Freeman having that issue that he had with his kid or whatever.
Yeah.
And not only in game one, he hits the first ever walk-off grand slam in extra fucking innings. Not only the first walk-off grand slam in history, but the first walk-off grand slam in history, and it went to extra innings. Then in game two, he hits another fucking dinger.
Yeah.
The tragedy, the Dodgers will win this World Series. That's just what's going to happen.
It's going to happen, but... So I'm talking to this guy next to me, and he tells me, because we were just kind of like shooting the shit while we were in line, and he's like, "Man, I drove down from Sacramento 8 hours to fucking come to this game, and technically my grandpa's funeral is tomorrow, but he's like, he was a Dodgers fan, and like I know he would have wanted me to go to this game, even though like his funeral's the fucking tomorrow." I'm like, "Damn, that's cool." And so then I go inside the stadium, and again, like the line for the gates were it's minimal. I'm like, what the fuck? And then KCal 9 fucking asked me if I wanted to be interviewed. I said fucking no, because I don't want to be on the cameras or whatever.
Man, you could have been like, yeah, check out True Room in the Pine, you fucking assholes.
And so they end up interviewing the guy I was talking to, and I was like, dude, why don't you tell him the story about your grandpa? Because he was talking, but they didn't get the juicy bits about the conversation. Yeah, so it kind of sucked.
Well, Game Rage exclusive, the guy at fucking Dodger Stadium that was on Channel 9.
I got his phone number. Maybe he could,
Fuck, maybe we could talk to him about it. Yeah, hit him up.
So then, pretty much from there on out, I was hanging out at reserve level, which is like the second deck from the top. And I was hanging outside behind home plate, but it's probably like 50 yards or 30 yards from like where home plate is, from where I was standing. But I kept talking to that fucking dude. And then in the meantime, like Big Papi, like David Ortiz, A-Rod, fucking Derek Jeter, they walked right by us. I couldn't pull out my phone quick enough, but at the same token, I was thinking, fuck these guys. They picked every other team besides the Dodgers and every guy. So I was like, I don't even care. Fuck these guys. Yeah. And then I go to my seat, and then the game unfolds, and I don't really want to spend so much time on like the game itself, because the game itself was like fucking amazing. I never had any doubt that they were gonna lose because of just the weird shit that was happening. Fernando passing away, and then also them doing like a memorial for him during the or rather before the game. That was cool because like I mean, I don't remember all the shit that my dad said about Fernando because they're technically from like the same village, but they talk highly of him because it was like, it's basically unlikely that somebody like him would go to the MLB and succeed as well as he did. Even though baseball is in Mexico, for a lot of people of like Latin descent or whatever, seeing somebody like that succeed is like, that is the American dream, that it's possible for somebody to come into this country and achieve being a World Series champion and to pitch as well as he did. That's a story to be told for immigrants like across the world, and
Absolutely.
it means so much to Mexicans because like that's our guy or whatever. And hearing my dad talk about that, my brother, and it's wild or whatever. But one thing they said that really pissed me off was when they were talking about Fernando by himself, like what were they saying? They said he had the body of a working class man, and they said he had an arm of like, I don't know what they said, but I'm like, why did you have to say he was working class? Obviously, like the dude has got like a bit of a rotund figure in the gut, right?
Yeah.
Like they're calling him fat
Yeah.
without. I'm like, dude, okay, so. If it were the case that the Padres were making a memorial of Tony Gwynn, who was like a fat
Hey,
fuck,
I'll tell you what, man. Tony Gwynn is probably one of the greatest hitters of all time. Well, at least of our generation
Yeah.
of fans. I mean, yeah, maybe Ted Williams was the previous generation. Tony Gwynn was a Ted Williams of our like generation.
oh yeah, no, I'm not. But
What I'm saying is, it's that video where that guy's doing. He's shirtless and he's doing that. He's rollerblading and he does that flip out of the bowl and he goes,
Yeah.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but this is peak male performance. Right
yeah,
here.
yeah.
And listen, let's be honest. It doesn't matter what you look like. What matters is your performance level. And
Yeah.
Tony Gwynn had strikeouts, less strikeouts in an entire year than most dudes had in like a fucking, I don't know, a game.
Yeah.
Almost. Like, it's crazy.
yeah.
But yeah, Fernando Valenzuela, same thing. Yeah, sure. He wasn't shredded. He wasn't like a fucking Adonis.
He wasn't like a pencil thin fucker like Oral Hershiser.
Yeah, Oral Hershiser. And again, Oral Hershiser, another, I don't know, peak Dodger of like that mid to late 90s fucking period where, or maybe even early 90s or whatever.
80s.
80s to 90s.
70s, 80s, yeah.
Yeah, he was a fucking peak member of that Dodgers fucking, team or whatever.
Yeah.
When they weren't really doing jack shit. But anyways, so yeah, he wasn't, Fernando Valenzuela wasn't a peak Adonis physical performance, right?
Yeah, so I'm like, why did you even fucking mention that? This is a memorial for him. Why are you calling him working class?
Yeah.
Like as if
Why you gotta bring that up?
as if it's supposed to be endearing, but it comes across as more as condescending.
It is.
Yeah, but
It's,
anyway,
it's giving him his flowers, but then also fucking saying he's fat. At the
Yeah,
same time.
yeah,
Like, fuck
fat.
up,
yeah. But anyways, they did the flyover. That shit was cool because they had like F-16s and then I think like a Blue Hornet or I don't know. If
Yeah, there were the video you sent me. There were 3 F-18s and 1 F-16 in the middle. That they
Oh, okay, never mind.
That was sweet.
Yeah,
That was sweet
yeah.
as fuck, man. That was pretty cool.
So as I was saying, the game fucking unravels, and like I'll just get to the key points.
Yeah.
Dodgers take the lead on sac fly. Giancarlo Stanton, Jack Flaherty, who I didn't know what the fuck to expect out of him. I was thinking if he could give us four innings, that'd be fucking amazing, especially if they were scoreless. So Dodgers take the lead. Giancarlo Stanton has a person, I think Aaron Judge got on base or Juan Soto got on base. And then Giancarlo Stanton hits like a ball. It wasn't even a bad pitch. He just like swung out in front of it and like he just dug it out and it fucking ended up in left field like by the foul pole. I was like, fuck my life, dude. So everybody was like, the guy that I was sitting next to, he was like, fuck, man. He's like, fuck. He literally said, fuck the entire goddamn game. And he's like, oh, I don't know why I came. He's like, man, I'm not ready for this shit. I'm like, man, you see him like mellow
Chill,
out,
man.
Yeah. So we get towards the end of the game where the Dodgers get themselves in a position to tie it up in the ninth with, I can't remember who singled, but, I think it was another sac fly situation that they ended up. It was Mookie Betts hitting a ball in center field, Aaron Judge catching it, and then the runner advancing and getting to home plate to make it 2-2. And then we get to the 10th inning where the fucking Yankees take the 3-2 lead because Blake Trinan gave up a run. And then we end up in fucking the 10th fucking inning where everybody's like, fuck, dude, what the fuck is going to happen? And it was a roller coaster of a game because the Dodgers were in the lead and the Yankees, and then let's square it up in the ninth. Like, I thought the Dodgers were going to walk it off in the ninth. And then we get to the 10th. And I didn't know this, but they don't do the rule where there's a runner on the second base like in the regular season. It just plays out like a regular inning, like in the playoffs. So I was like, oh, cool. So then there's no runners on base. You know, if somebody gets a single, it's not automatically like most likely a
score,
RBI single, right? So that was cool. So then we get to the bottom of the 10th, 2 outs. The bases are fucking loaded. They walk Mookie Betts to to make the bases loaded because they're like, well, Freddie hasn't fucking hit since he's been back, or rather, like in the playoffs, like he hasn't been too hot. So it's like, okay, we'll take our chances. So then the Yankees fucking put Nestor Cortez, who hasn't pitched in 2 goddamn months.
That was terrible. That was a shitty decision, man.
So then he fucking pitches him inside like a fucking meatball, dude.
I'll tell you what, okay, because Freddie Freeman is a left-handed batter.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're facing a right-handed pitcher and that angle that you're throwing at, if you throw anything on the inside half,
You just see it,
it's
right?
gone. You see it, you know exactly what it is,
Yeah.
and you're fucking chucking it to wherever. And the second, I'll be honest with you, because I watched that game too, right? The second I saw the ball come out of his hand, I'm like,
Oh, it's over.
gone. It's done. He just hit a grand fucking slam. There's no fucking way that this ball is going to maintain in the park. And I saw it at the trajectory, and I'm like, it's going to be on the inside half. Yes, for sure, it's done. And the second he makes contact with it, I'm like, it's gone. It's done. It's fucking toast.
Dude, I mean, I couldn't tell from him throwing the ball, but the launch angle, like when you see it,
Gone.
You just knew, dude, because
No doubt.
It was a no doubter. And man, crowd erupts.
Yeah.
The dude that was like livid about the run that the Yankees scored to put them up 3-2. Oh man, we were like, he was like covering his face, like he was putting his head on my shoulders throughout Freddie Freeman's at bat. And then like we were watching the at bat unfold, and when he fucking hit that ball, we were like fucking jumping, and then we hugged for like the entirety of Freddie Freeman rounding the bases and shit, and then him eventually meeting like the rest of the team and shit. We hugged for like a good 5 fucking minutes. And there was this dickhead fucking Yankees fan that was just like talking mad shit, and he would go up and down the fucking alleyways of like the sections and shit.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh fuck the Dodgers and all this bullshit. And dude, you did not hear a fucking peep out of him after Freddie Freeman got that homer. And then it was more like playful banter, because that guy ended up walking to this other dickhead that was like a Dodgers fan that was talking shit to him too, and they ended up like shaking hands or whatever. It was more like, banter, shit talking, but it wasn't like bad blood or anything.
Right.
But,
and that's one of the things that's great about baseball is like that game was an excellent fucking game. I mean, there's no going extra innings game 1 of the World Series, man. That extra innings in the World Series is rare enough. To have it happen game 1 and then to have it end in the way it did, it brings people together, man. Even like you didn't know this fucking guy. And that's one thing that's great about baseball. I feel like more than any other sport, man, that shit, like it's such a fucking toss up because of the way that the game goes and the way it's played, that when you experience this shit with somebody, it's like, fuck, man, I don't know you, but like we're on the same side, and like, fuck yeah, man, like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I was already thinking if the Dodgers, because the top of the order for that game, the bottom of the 10th, they had Tommy Edman, who's basically a leadoff hitter. Like he's small, but he can just get on base.
Yeah.
They started that, he was at the bottom of the order in 9, right? And then it's Shohei Ohtani who flied out, and then Mookie Betts gets on, and then I forget who else gets on base. And then that leads to like Freddie Freeman, right?
Yeah.
So knowing that going into the 10th, that it was setting up for the top of the order to essentially like bat for the win, for the walk-off, I was like, this game's over. Like even if I wasn't sure, like in the mind, I just felt like it was going to happen because of the shit that already happened during the season with Freddie's kid, like having, I forget what it was called, like Guerriere syndrome or whatever the fuck it was called.
Yeah.
And his kid like having to learning how to walk again because he had paralysis in his fucking legs. And like you couldn't fucking write this any better, dude.
No,
like
you couldn't.
especially for this guy that hadn't hit during the playoffs because his fucking ankle's fucked. And that was the other thing. It was very much like Kirk Gibson in the fucking 1988 World Series. Couldn't fucking walk. And Freddie, who's probably knocked up with cortisone shots like every 6 hours or who the fuck knows. But it's so strange that it just ended up rhyming with something that happened 40 or 36 years ago, or wherever I don't know the math. But even Joe Davis, who's the Dodgers commentator, gave something that was shades of Vin Scully. She's gone. Like that's the fucking call from the 98 or the 88 World Series. So Man, that was like peak fucking baseball. I literally saw the greatest game of baseball. Like, in my opinion, it's the greatest postseason victory ever. It's the greatest game of baseball I've ever fucking seen. Game 2, just to kind of gloss over it, man, there was so much shit talked about Yamamoto coming to the Dodgers and him being paid $325 million. And he didn't really exhibit signs of his like excellency throughout the season. Like we saw flashes of him doing well, and funny enough, like the one game that he actually performed extremely well was against the Yankees. He carved their fucking shit up because the Yankees are one of the worst teams that end up chasing pitches, and that's exactly what he fucking did against them.
Yep.
And so he basically proved all the fucking haters wrong. And I mean, we should have expected this because this is the guy that won 2 back-to-back Sawamura awards, which are equivalent to the Cy Young awards. He had a sub-2 ERA. So like the dude was good. I didn't give a fuck like if he was gonna perform well in the regular season. Nobody gives a shit about that shit.
It's all that matters in the playoffs.
Yeah,
right?
like the Dodgers
postseason.
I've seen it numerous times. Clayton Kershaw, 3-time Cy Young Award winner, sub-2 ERA. Like at one point in his career,
Chokes every time.
chokes every time. Who gives a shit, dude? I don't give a fuck about the regular season. The guy is not clutch when it comes to the postseason, right? Yamamoto, who had been pedestrian like pretty much throughout the season, ended up being like the best player. Like he did 6 1/3 inning for the second game.
And I'll say this too, okay, just because this series has been touted from the beginning as Aaron Judge versus Shohei Ohtani, right?
Yeah.
And what's funny is throughout 2 games, both of them really haven't done shit.
Like the most impactful moments of the game have not been attributed to
either of them at all. And they're basically, like, to be perfectly honest, both of them have essentially been non-factors realistically, offensively in this series. And I actually kind of like that. I think that's cool to see guys that aren't typically your ones who, again, they're stepping up in the playoffs. Maybe in the regular season, listen, Shohei Ohtani went 50 or whatever fucking for the first time ever, right? And not to go on a rant about Shohei Ohtani, but his time on the Angels and like everything that he did, to me, like this kind of shows like Shohei Ohtani is a very selfish player. Mm-hmm. He's very much like, he's not like a team player guy essentially. And again, him coming in and taking a dude's number, that's a fucking prime example of that, right? And yes, individually he does great, just like he did for the Angels. Individually, he was a standout player. But when it comes to, this is his first appearance in really the postseason since he's been in the major leagues.
Yeah.
And granted, I don't know what the exact numbers are for the postseason previous to the World Series, but thus far through 2 games in the World Series, he's been non-effective at all in terms of offense.
Well, he's gotten on base, but it's not like
he's like 2 for fucking 9 or 2 for 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
Throughout the course of the thing, and it's like he's not putting up the numbers he was putting up against. He got thrown out in game 2, trying to steal second, and fucking dislocated his shoulder.
Yeah, and that wasn't even necessary. I mean, sure, it's like to have the potential to score one more insurance run in the I forgot what inning it was.
Yeah.
But he didn't have to do that, and he ended up getting injured, and it's like, whatever, dude, whatever.
And I think that going into games 3, 4, and 5 in New York, I think narratively, I don't think that the MLB, again, I don't think they want this to end in 4. They don't want a sweep to happen.
No, I don't think they do either.
I think the Yankees take the next 3 games, and then I think they go back to Dodger Stadium. The Dodgers pick up 6. It's tied 3-3. I think they take this to game 7, man. I think that's what needs to happen.
I don't think it goes to game 7. I think for sure maybe they lose 2 and they take one in
they win it or they take one in New York, come back and win it in 6.
But I'd be shocked to see it go 4-1. The series
There's
win.
No way, yeah.
Yeah, 5-1, because I don't want to say you want to leave it to chance to take it to game 6 and bring it back to LA and for them to win it then, because you don't want to take, dude, you want to win the World Series as soon as possible. If you're 2 wins away, you want to sweep.
Yeah, you want to win it now.
But because of like baseball wanting this, or even for people to hate this scenario but can't help but watch, like this thing has to go to at least 6. So I'm already prepared for this thing to end up being a 6-game series in my head.
Yeah.
But best case, it ends up being 4-1
4-1.
because I just don't see how the Yankees. I just don't personally see how the Yankees can pull out of this when if you get another round of Yamamoto, that's fucking it. Like
toast,
you're not. Nobody's touching that splitter. Nobody's touching that curveball. If Jack Flaherty gives another fucking quality start, then that's also like a no-no. It really all hinges on like how this game plays out with Walker Buehler, who also just came off of getting his second Tommy John surgery, and he has proven like he's been capable of pitching in the playoffs, which he did against the Mets. So it's like all we need to see is if like he ends up getting the win tomorrow, and then if they lose the next 2 games, fuck it, whatever. Take it back home, win game 6, and
be done with it.
Be done with it. But
the only criticism I had of Yamamoto was I think he did a great job because he got the job done, right? I felt like his pitch count went a little higher too quickly because I mean he threw like 19 pitches in the first inning.
Oh yeah, he's notorious for that. Like
right, and I felt like
the first fucking inning, dude. Like it's every fucking start. He just can't get out within 30 pitches or less. Like, and this was also the case in the.
So, and he got up to like 50-something pitches in like 3 innings. But I'll give him this. I mean, he went like, what, 5.5 or 6 innings?
He went to like 6 1/3 or
I think 6 1/3 or something like that, or 6 2/3. But he did the job, man. Like, he fucking earned that World Series win.
Yeah, and the fucking thing is, like, he only pitched 85 pitches. Motherfuckers in the 80s and probably in the 70s and 90s, they threw 140 pitches in one fucking game, dude.
And they were going like 8 innings, maybe even 9, maybe 8 and like a third.
So it's like, man, I'm really tired of seeing like these guys being coddled or being pulled out. Like, let them fucking pitch, dude. They're starting pitching. Yeah. But anyways, long story short, I think I've witnessed the greatest playoff game ever fucking played. To see the first walk-off grand slam, dude, I'll never forget that shit. That is embedded in my memory. I didn't even pull out my phone to record this shit because there's plenty of people that have video of this shit. I didn't even want to take the chance. I'm like, I'm not going to pull my phone and miss out on this guy fucking hitting this grand slam. So it's like, my eyes were fucking locked in and I have that shit embedded in my head. So at the very least, like, we get to talk about it here on this fucking episode. So.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, it's cool. Like, hey, I got to see Shohei Ohtani's first home run.
And his first dislocation.
In his first game as a Major League Baseball player. All right, like, that was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
You got to see fucking the first walk-off grand slam in World Series history.
Yeah.
Fucking amazing. Great times all around.
Oh, yeah, dude. I think baseball has never been in a better position. Like, it's more interesting than the NFL to me.
Absolutely.
It's always been. I mean, baseball is like my number one sport, but like football, I guess is like the number one priority for the U.S. But I don't know about this now, dude. I think baseball is like...
Baseball's coming back. Yeah. It's coming up, all right? And, you know, we'll see where it goes. Yeah. But anyways, shit, you got anything more to add for this one?
No, I mean, fuck. Well, I guess we'll talk about when they win the World Series,
I guess, or if whatever that happens. So, anyways, if you want to hear more of our shit, go to Game Rage Magazine on YouTube. Like, comment, and subscribe. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Game Rage Magazine, Twitter/X Game Rage Mag. You can follow Adam at All Gas No Trash Official on Instagram. And shit, stay tuned. Maybe we'll see the Dodgers win. I will say this: I have been an asshole and I've been going around to places and saying "Go Yankees" and because I hate the Dodgers. So like, everybody in LA wants to murder me at this point, and you know, it's fine. I'll take it. I debated buying a Yankee hat just to be an asshole, but I'm not paying $50 for a goddamn hat that I'm going to wear for 2 weeks.
Fitted cap, dude. Fuck that.
Fuck that. All right, that was also not including shipping. It would have been like $75.
Oh, fuck my life.
Just to wear it for like 2 weeks. No fucking way. So I ended up, just on a side note, I ended up going on to NHL Shop. I bought a Golden Knights hat for fucking like $8, a Flex Fit. It's that shitty Fanatics material. We'll do an episode about Fanatics material shit because it's garbage.
Dude, the hockey jerseys have the fucking Fanatics stitching.
It's ass.
And I'm like, fuck this, dude.
What's funny, too, is the MLB shop is run by Fanatics, but guess what? They're still wearing Nike jerseys. Nobody's...
It's like fucking Nike makes the jerseys, right?
Yeah, but they're sold by Fanatics or whatever. Like, I don't think the MLB is going to fucking risk going to Fanatics jerseys.
I think Nike licensed them making the jerseys.
Yeah, so they're going to have that. But
the shitty quality, but now they're going back to... what they were before next year.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's going to be a clearance for jerseys. So if you want to buy a shitty jersey,
Oh yeah, I'll buy a shitty Fanatics Angels jersey for fucking nothing.
and then have it disintegrate like 10 minutes later.
In a week. But yeah, so and then I also bought some Patriots hats for because those are on sale too. So
Yeah.
That's one thing that's great about your teams that suck is that you don't.
Shit's gonna be cheap.
It's cheap as shit. I bought some Patriots hats that were from like 2022.
Yeah.
All right, I got them for like $9. I think I spent $40 including shipping, and they're gonna be here Tuesday. So the Golden Knights hat, fuck man, it got here in a day. It got here the next day, and I paid $22 with shipping and the hat. It was fucking insane. So, anyways,
Fantastic.
all right. That'll be the end of it. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Sweet.
That was Chirpin' from the Pine, the Game Rage Sports Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Game Rage Magazine. Follow us on X at Game Rage Mag. You can go to our website, www.gameragemagazine.com.